Welcome back, everyone. So in our third and final session of the day, we are honored to have Ms. Charlene Joanne McKimmon leading an insightful conversation about building procurement capacity for government and suppliers. This will be our third and final session of the day, and it will be followed by closing remarks. So as your questions come up, a reminder as always, do add your questions using the Q&A button found in the lower part of your screen so that we can send those to the moderator and have those questions addressed near the end of the session. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Charlene, who is a senior procurement specialist at the Asian Development Bank. Prior to joining the ADB, Charlene headed the East Caribbean mission to the European Union in Brussels, Belgium, where she worked for 3 years primarily on negotiation and mobilization of development finance with the European Commission. Before this, she was a fiduciary procurement specialist at the Inter-American Development Bank in Washington, D.C., where for more than 4 years she was part of the IDB country systems team. Charlene has also served the Caribbean community in various capacities for more than 7 years, including as Deputy Program Manager in Government Procurement Reform, where she led the development of the Caribbean Regional Procurement Policy. Joining her as a panelist is Ibudui Wayuni Kartianinsi, who is the Director for Business Climate Development and International Cooperation for the National Public Procurement Agency in Indonesia. She is responsible for formulating strategies, policies, and guidelines on the business climate and international cooperation in government procurement, particularly related to participation of MSCs in domestic GP and non-MSCs in international GP, sustainable procurement, development funding cooperation, as well as international trade agreements. Ibu Dwi is also the lead negotiator for the working group on government procurement in several FTAs and CEPAs. She holds a master's degree in economics and public policy from the School of Public Policy and Management at the Korea Development Institute in Seoul, Korea. Our second panelist is Joe Fagan, who is an international consultant specializing in the development and implementation of EGP systems. Mr. Fagan has been providing advisory services to the ADB and the World Bank, assisting with their assessment, development, implementation, and promotion of electronic procurement systems. Mr. Fagan was one of the contributing authors of the ADB EGP Handbook and the World Bank Global Public Procurement Stock Taking Initiative. Mr. Fagan's extensive knowledge of the information industry and experience with development and implementation of information and electronic procurement services provides an invaluable depth of business and technical knowledge for development and implementation of new electronic services. Our third panelist in this session is Jesper Pedersen. Jesper is a principal procurement specialist at the ADB and supports the implementation of the ADB's procurement policies and procurement capacity development strategies. The ADB's new procurement framework, introduced in 2017, supports the implementation of Strategy 2030 with an emphasis on value for money, innovation, and high-level technology. Our fourth panelist is Choi Chan-mo, Head of the Procurement Training Planning at the Public Procurement Service for the Republic of Korea. He is currently responsible for planning the capacity development of private sector employees and procurement officials. Since joining the PPS in 2005, he has served various departments, including the E-Procurement Management Division, the ICT Contract Division, the Procurement Planning Division, and several more. As director, last year, he successfully led a task force for procuring LDS syringes for the COVID-19 vaccine and face masks throughout the nation for his country's fight against the coronavirus. And last but not least, we have Paul Featherstone, Director of International Sales for Intend Limited UK. Intend is a service provider selected by the ADB for provision of software as a service, EGP, for countries that wish to start their e-procurement journey. Paul leads the Intend approaches into new and existing markets, focusing on the provision of a class-leading e-procurement platform to its expanding global community of users, working with national government users and large non-government organizations with operations on multiple continents. He is part of the senior leadership team that plot the vision for the Intend e-procurement solution to meet the evolving requirements of its public and private sector user base. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Charlene to lead this discussion.
Thank you very much, Roger. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you again. And dear participants, I want to thank you all for remaining with us over these 3 days. I thank you for joining this afternoon's last panel session, which is, as Roger said earlier, the penultimate activity for today. You are aware that there are closing remarks that will follow this presentation, this panel rather, so please do stay online with us. For this panel, I'm joined today by 5 distinguished speakers, whom have all been introduced already. I want to welcome our panelists on behalf of today's audience. Our discussion today will focus on capacity building for government and suppliers in e-procurement, and also on traditional procurement, as well as e-procurement, because of course they're interlinked. It's very difficult to speak about capacity building in e-procurement without reference to capacity building in traditional procurement. So you will find today's discussion includes a little bit of both. We will observe that throughout the presentations today, we'll talk about building capacity in procurement in general, because it's critical to efficient and effective procurement. And I stress here that this is true not only for the traditional procurement and electronic procurement, but also for capacity, for policy development, and for the setup of institutions that support and underpin the procurement system of a country. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over today to Mr. Jesper Pedersen of the ADB to start off today's discussion and to deliver our first presentation. Jesper, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Charlene. Very happy to be here, and I'll try to perhaps set the stage for this session in building procurement capacity for government officials and for suppliers. Maybe I'll start a little bit on what ADB is doing in capacity development. Let me see if I can, there. So ADB in its strategy 2030 has put a lot of emphasis on capacity development in general, and emphasize ADB's role as a knowledge institution and as a knowledge provider, with a focus on strengthening the institutional capacity of our developing member countries, as well as expanding knowledge partnerships and disseminating knowledge. So supporting our member countries in developing their procurement capacities and their e-procurement system is actually core of ADB Strategy 2030. So this is one of the areas that we will focus on in the coming years, and we are in the process of developing a new strategy on how we're going to support e-procurement development in the area. In our procurement department, we focus on 3 areas in terms of capacity development. It's training, where we provide more than 150 training and knowledge sessions per year, which includes business opportunity seminars for the private sector. We have what I call transactional procurement training, so training in the procurement process, how to prepare a bid, how to evaluate a bid, contract management, and so on. We are starting, or have started with, since 2017, to focus on strategic procurement training, which looks more as how can the procurement function add value to projects and achieve value for money through proper procurement management and engagement with the market. We're in the process of developing partnerships with international recognized training providers to offer certification for our developing member state government officials to underpin these trainings efforts. Second area we focus on is knowledge solutions in e-procurement, e-government procurement. I mean, we can mention the MDB EGP assessments, which is being updated as we speak. We provide good practice guides, case studies, and of course conferences like this one. And then we look at institutional capacity development. So how can we build, help countries develop their capacities in the country systems. We do country system, procurement system assessments. We provide technical assistance and work at the policy level with our DMCs. When I was asked if I wanted to speak this, I did some thinking, because capacity for what? Capacity building, capacity development is many things. And in the context of e-government procurement, EGP, it also covers a very broad area. I think the first one is development and implementation of EGP systems, and with this includes policies, regulations, laws, etc., that might be needed to be changed to really implement e-government procurement systems of further development and enhance them. A second area of capacity is actually the use of data coming out of e-procurement system for monitoring purposes and for improving procurement management. And this is a completely different skill set, of course, than the development of regulatory framework for e-procurement, or development the actual IT solutions, which is the first part. And the third one is the very nuts and bolts on how users use EGP systems in their daily work, or how suppliers, bidders access it. What are the functionalities? How do you submit bids? How do you create various documents and things like that? ADB is focusing on the first two, not necessarily how to use particular e-procurement systems. And one of the reasons for that is, of course, that every country, every member state has its own e-procurement systems, which varies from jurisdiction to jurisdictions. And that work lies best with the countries themselves. They are much better positioned to do this kind of work. So at the first two, or the first level, so developing capacities to development and implementation of e-procurement system. And this is, ADB has conducted 66 e-procurement assessments over the last 6 years. So more than 10 assessments every year. I mean, 66 assessments is much more than the number of developing member states in ADB, but some countries have multiple systems, and some systems might have been assessed several times because of new developments, new functionalities, etc. So basically, an assessment looks at the functionality, the scope of the system, including security features, and it's a dual purpose. The immediate purpose is often for allowing the government to use the e-procurement system for ADB projects. ADB, together with the other MDBs, have some specific requirements that a system must meet before we can allow it to be used under ADB projects. And the assessments is a tool to determine that. The second purpose is, of course, that if it doesn't meet our requirement, it can be basically the starting point for improvement of the systems, to identify what could be done to further enhance the system so it can meet what the MDBs consider as good practice for use in their system, and that is often related to allowing international bidders to participate, security features, etc. A second area that was mentioned also when the panelist was introduced is that we have provided software as a service on e-procurement. It started for the Pacific countries primarily, as they are very small island states, and investing in an e-procurement system of their own does not make sense. But the whole COVID pandemic basically saw a need for other countries that have their own e-procurement system to use e-procurement systems to receive bids, etc. And the software as a service solution came in very, very handy. So from 2015 to 2020, we've had over 209 projects using ADB projects using the national e-procurement system, and contracts more than 35 billion has used these systems. So, and it's something that we promote very heavily. We think that it's the most effective, it's transparent, it has a lot of benefits. So basically, it's understanding the status of the system, the policy system, models, implementation status, of course, and based on assessments, we encourage that e-procurement development is put into a country strategy, and development and implementation of roadmaps to either in some countries kick off the journey to e-procurement, and there we can look at what are the legal requirements, regulatory impediments for implementing e-procurement system, but also functionalities, security features that would be beneficial to include an e-procurement system. And then basically assist countries in developing roadmaps to fully implement e-procurement systems. Now we have TA resources to support these assessments and development of roadmaps. We can also support EGP audits, conferences, trainings, and we have had a couple of TAs over the last 5-6 years being implemented, and that goes from and we've received funding from the Republic of Korea, eAsia and Knowledge Partnership Fund to do a lot of this work, which we are very grateful for. It has really made it possible for ADB to support quite a number of countries. Now, the second part that we are focusing on is basically e-procurement for data analytics. And this is about better procurement management. Well, paper-based systems are very, very difficult to find data, compare data and things like, and use it for anything basically. But even when you have e-procurement system, if the data is not analyzed, or you don't know how to use the data or which data to use and basically ensure data integrity, it is still very difficult to get sensible information out of it. So what our capacity development focuses on is how to use data analytics to maximize value, and that could be at the organizational level, or project level, or contract level even, which includes, for example, market analysis, who are the bidders in the market, what are the typical bidding patterns, lead times, etc. Looking at agencies' past procurement performance, both pre-contract and in contract implementation. Use data for risk identification and mitigation. So these are the areas that we work with our DMCs to further use data to inform procurement management, for example, through what we call strategic procurement planning, where this data comes into play. And e-procurement is definitely one of the best tools to get this data and improve procurement performance overall, and basically maximizing value for money. I'll stop here and hand over back to Charlene. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jesper, and thank you for this quite interesting presentation on what ADB has been doing over the past few years. You told us about ADB's efforts in training, what ADB is doing in training in general, but also what ADB is doing with respect to EGP and how it supports its developing member countries through assessments. Those assessments are used not only just to approve the use of a country's systems in ADB finance operations, but also the assessments help us support the development or strengthening of a country's EGP system. So thank you very much for that, and also highlighting how important it is to use the data analytics to help us further develop and strengthen systems. Thank you so much. I would like to move on to our second presenter right now. So I'd like to invite Deputy Director Chan Woo Choi to take the floor and deliver his presentation. Thank you. You have the floor.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We hear you very well. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. My name is Choi Chan-woo, Head of Procurement Training Planning, Public Procurement Service, South Korea, PPS. Let me share my PPT. 여기서 F5 된다. 어떻게 알죠? 다른 사람들이 볼 수 있는 거를. Can you see my slides? Yes, let me start. So I'm going to give a presentation on capacity building programs for procurement officers and suppliers during the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah, 하라고? Yeah. So since 2005, I've been working for PPS. Only this year, as a director, I led the procurement team for procuring LDS syringes for against COVID-19. Yes, my presentation has 4 chapters. Among these, I'm going to highlight Chapter 2, capacity building programs, and 3, PPS spatial activities during the COVID-19 pandemic. Public Procurement Training Institute, PPTI, has a mission to help developing procurement professionals and fostering international competitive SMEs. PPTI on the PPS I'm gonna describe about PPS, their mission, and makes rules, regulations, and guidelines related to public procurement, provides procurement service for all public entities, and operates the world-class EGP called CONEPS. The central government entities in Korea should use central procurement services, and local government and public enterprises could procure goods, services, and constructions works by PPS or themselves. It's optional. So you can see this map, all procedures of procurement. So PPTI activities covering all parts of procurement procedures in the map. So actually, local governments' procurement laws and regulations are slightly different from central governments. So the lectures in PPTI teaches both kind of regulations. CONEPS is covering all procedures in the map. Full-time lectures 12 consists of 3 current officials and 9 former officials of PPS. Most of them are former manager level officials over 25 years experience in PPS, who are retired from PPS within recent 3 years. PPS manages a database for over 100 lectures, including e-proposal, RFID, and public land management system inside, as well as the MS tools, AI, metaverse, and humanities outside. The budget of this year is the 1.5 million US dollar. Is downsizing 7.3% from last year. The procurement, education, planning, training, tasks, cycles, the circulates for activities like this map. So this time of the year, from November to December, is to design training programs for next year. The last year, due to the COVID-19, PPTI unexpectedly changed the planned most courses to online. However, these days, the PPTI is considering planning group training courses like before the pandemic. The training method consists of 3 kinds of classes. However, the face-to-face group classes has been opened only a few times since coronavirus broke out. The reputation of every single classes have been evaluated by attendees as soon as the end of the class, and also reviewed by external professional group. The reputation of lecturers and feedback on classes are reported to the president of the PPTI, and most of them are applied to the next class or next year if needed budget. This picture is taken outside of the building, PPTI. The 4 regular lecture rooms accommodate around 205 attendees, and all can have lunch at the same time in the canteen. Last year, PPTI transformed some small rooms into online lecture rooms. This picture is the ordinary rooms in the PPTI, and then recently made some rooms like this for online class. Yes, PPTI has 3 kinds of classes. The first one, group, typical group training and online training, and last one is e-learning course. PPTI runs approximately over 30 and 120 classes per year. Unfortunately, last year, 0 international officials come to PPTI. So I hope all of you can come to Korea next year without mask and no social distancing. This chart shows number of trainees for last 5 years. The number of last year, 2020, increased more 20% than 2019. Particularly PPS jumped doubled because PPS, one of the central government offices, strictly follows the social distancing policy in Korea. When social distancing level 4 in Korea, 30% of officials in PPS should work from home. Around 20% of PPS staff might have attended online class during the time. Yes, this chart is interesting. Actually, the COVID-19 makes new trends of training method. Online classes, the yellow color, has been emerging as a new way, replace the typical group training method. As e-learning class is the preferred method also during the pandemic. Yeah. The aim of PPTI educates procurement officers to specialists in the field. So there are many specific programs for each level. Major level programs teach attendees leadership in the complicated procurement surroundings, especially the COVID-19 pandemic. PPS applies government policies into procurement regulations, evaluation guidelines of tenders, and conditions of restricted competition, and so on. These days, new trends of ICT technology has been adding in programs in PPTI because ICT helps business process efficient, effective, and quickly. These curriculums is for officials procuring goods and services. It is focusing on procurement regulations and guidelines, as well as using EGP. And the e-bidding practice in testing system is very useful for beginners to learn how to do public notice, opening bidding, price, and electronic signing with the contract electronically. These programs for contract workers are about building facilities and bridges and paving as asphalt. It is focusing on construction costs, including materials and workers' payments, as well as workers' insurance during the project. The benefit of group training at PPTI is to exercise all procedures of procurement, public procurement with the simulation EGP in a procurement course. This course provides both public officers and suppliers, employees with a high satisfaction and makes them understand the entire process of the procurement. Ultimately, the large effectiveness of the course is obviously reducing complaints from bidders. During the real electronic bidding process, by understanding what they have to do in every stage of the process. At this point, I would like to your organization to seriously consider building a simulation EGP system for practical training of the procurement procedures if you don't operate it yet. I would be the best way to root out potential complaints from bidders. It helps the performance of procurement officers pretty higher. Help the performance of procurement officers pretty higher as well. CONEPS has sub-systems such as RFID system, management national properties, and e-proposal. PPTI makes effort to get procurement officers relaxed during the attending humanity curriculums because the officers are exhausted from the heavy burden of work. The healing programs staying in campus. PPTI provides supplies with training courses of covering the entire procurement process from registration to signing contract sheet electronically. They can exercise the entire electronic bidding process with the simulation system, and the experience does overwhelmingly reduce fatal mistakes while real tendering. Yes, the developing better programs, PPTI analyze the data which it gathers from attendees by smartphone soon after ending every single classes. The result of the survey is used to plan next courses. This chapter, chapter 3, PPS spatial activities during the COVID-19 pandemic. You can see this map about the cold chain for vaccination in Korea. let me briefly introduce the cold chain for delivery vaccination in Korea. Pfizer vaccines are made in a low temperature freezer, keeping minus 15 Celsius. But at the beginning of the year, PDA recommended storing it under 60 Celsius. PPS built a cold chain covering entire logistics from the factories to final destination, over 3,000 hospitals across the nation. And any technical issues over the distribution are immediately reported to the head office of the National Emergency Center by alarm of the cold chain system. PPS had prepared cold chain system early this year by urgent procurement scheme before the first vaccination arrived at the Incheon airport. Next one. Most of you are very familiar with the picture face masks. The pandemic masks may changes our ordinary life, such as wearing masks, washing hands every time, and then social distancing and so on. As a personal protective equipment, face masks are essential for people prevent the spread of the virus. For the reason its price only last year located to $5 from 50 cents, only 50 cents in usual. The bigger issue was not enough to buy to eat most stores, even at the price. In the circumstance, PPS contracted with all manufacturers of masks in the nation around US $1, according to urgent procurement laws, and provide it with pharmacies in the nation. In August, the price was stable nationwide. PPS placed the role of the making public being economic and safety of their life. Yes, this is about the LDS syringes. It is the third best case of PPS activities in the pandemic. Most countries have made efforts to have their people with immunity nationwide against the COVID-19. LDS low dead space syringes helps the vaccination campaign reach the target earlier in lack of the vaccine supply, because it saves up to 20% of the vaccines and take time of the public vaccination shorter. Procuring LDS syringes speedy in urgent and important vaccination campaign helped saving budget, helping public health and supporting innovative SMEs to export its products to international market. So the TF for procuring LDS syringes in PPS got the award Excellent Public Service 2021, and the activities of TF have been used on innovative and proactive cases at the PPTI for the public procurement officers. This is the last slide. The model of EGP launched by PPS called CONAPS, as you know, has been adopted to many countries. expert to EGP, including me in PPS, give advice to developing countries, transforming public procurement process into digitalization. Hopefully, we come back to ordinary days like before COVID-19 and meet again somewhere with no mask and no social distancing. Thank you for attending my presentation.
Thank you very much, Deputy Director Chan Mo Choi, for this very comprehensive presentation that you have delivered today on the work of the PPTI of CONEPS. You shared with us the work that you do usually in your training and how you've been innovative, even in redesigning your training platforms, or rather your training spaces, dormitories becoming training rooms, etc. I was particularly interested in seeing the three types of online training that you have now include, well, the three types of training that you have, the in-person, which is now, I suppose, not available, but the fact that you have online training as well as e-learning, and e-learning is quite important for that continuity, because this training can be on demand. It can be on demand. And so I want to congratulate you and your team for the work that you are doing, and also the fact that there is accessibility of your training for countries over the world. The pandemic that brought so many procurement processes to their knees really did not stop training and capacity building that can be done online, and that global and international reach of CONEPS and the PPTI was able to be continued. So I congratulate you for that. I also wanted to just touch on one of the slides you shared about the way that the training is done, and the way it is planned. There's the planning for the training, there's the review and feedback, the development or redevelopment, and again the training cycle. So I think here we have some very good examples that can be followed in terms of how training can be developed, delivered, and of course planned for the next cycle. So I want to thank you on behalf of our audience again for your very comprehensive presentation. I want to move without any further ado to Ibu Dwi to deliver to us the next presentation on the LKPP platform. I welcome you. Please, you have the floor.
So thank you very much, Charlene, for the time given to me this afternoon. Good afternoon from Indonesia, Jakarta, and also good morning for all of our participants, for moderator, and also fellow panelists. Firstly, I would like to thank to ADB for giving National Public Procurement Agency of Indonesia the opportunities to be the speaker in this conference. Next slide, please. And my presentation is about how Indonesia experienced in order to building procurement capacity for government and suppliers. First of all, please let me begin by sharing the overview of government procurement in Indonesia in year 2021. The procurement spending in Indonesia consists of central and local government is $78.5 billion US, or almost 50% of government spending. The procurement itself is executed in 628 government agencies all over the country, with more than 700,000 suppliers registered in system. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. In this slide, I want to talk about the purpose of government procurement as mandated by our procurement regulation. I think the previous slide, please. The previous one. Yeah. In this slide, we see that our purpose of government procurement, of which are strongly related to our topic today, such as value for money, increasing the role of national businesses, enlarge business opportunities, and encourage the participation of MSEs. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide shows that the world is now facing the unprecedented circumstances, the COVID-19 pandemic, and all governments set their policies to respond to the pandemic. In Indonesia, the policy direction prioritized the health sector and economic recovery. I will move to the next slide. Okay, I think the slide is okay. In terms of government procurement, response to the COVID-19 pandemic can be seen from our four perspectives. First, regarding the policies, we have emergency procurement policies and also economic recovery. And in terms of electronic system, the second one, we have the dedicated platform of Bela Pengadaan, we call it. This is established to facilitate direct purchasing from MSEs. And also, we have also the system recourse to the contracts of emergency procurement. And the third is advocacy, where our office established a task force to deliver procurement advocacy and technical guidance, especially COVID-19 related procurement. And the fourth is procurement stakeholder capacity, which is about building capacity for procurement professional as well as businesses, that I will talk more details in the next few slides. Next slides, please. Okay, in terms of regulatory and policy framework, we have several specific policies on procurement capacity building. They are strengthening procurement institutions and human resources, and encouraging the participation of national businesses in government procurement, including MSEs, and developing integrated electronic procurement system, and providing technical support, and delivering procurement advice and technical guidance. And the next slide. The next slide, please. Okay. Okay, this slide shows how we conduct the capacity building regarding actors and competency in procurement process. In terms of procurement operations, there are some stages in procurement process, from procurement planning to handover. And I have to emphasize that all processes conducted through electronics means. And we can see in the slide that different actors involved in the process. For example, the contracting officer will be in charge in preparation, selection, and contract. In doing so, we have established standard of competence for contracting officer. There are level 1, level 2, and level 3. It means that the more complicated the work, the higher level of competence required. Likewise, for selection committee, there are different levels of competence, level 2, 3, and 4. So in case for businesses, knowledge and skill on procurement procedure are needed to participate in government procurement. including how to operate the electronic procurement system. Next slide, please. In building procurement capacity, of course, we do face some challenges. Indonesia is a big and archipelago country. Procurement execution is conducted by each agency spread over 600 government entities. And capacity building program also needs a significant amount of invest. And also it is evident that there are rapid development and change of procurement knowledge and practices. So how to overcome such challenges, we can take a look to the next slide. Okay, to overcome such challenges, including in the situation of a pandemic, in the next few slides, please let me share Indonesian experience regarding strategies of building capacity for procurement professional and national businesses. We at least apply 3 strategies, which are collaborative, innovative, and adaptive strategies. Okay, we can take a look at every strategies. In the collaborative strategy, we build a cooperation with at least 4 elements. There are international agencies, national government agencies, private agencies, and academia in terms of building capacity for procurement professionals and national businesses, including MSEs. I need to highlight that NPPA is the lead for training in government procurement. And we will provide some example here in the next slide. Okay, we collaborate with several international agencies as shown in the slide, consists of very well-known international organizations like USGDA, MCC, and of course, Asian Development Bank, GIZ, World Bank, and UNDP. While with national government agencies, we established a cooperation with Indonesian embassies abroad and a training division and procurement unit all over Indonesia with trainers in other government agencies and relevant ministry to conduct virtual and on-site training and also dissemination as well as preparation of training materials. Okay, next slide, please. And moving on to collaboration with private agencies, there are private training institutions, which are certified ones, that also can conduct procurement trainings. So we don't have a nice building like PPS does. And we also work together with the marketplace companies in order to assist the merchant, which are MSEs. For example, by giving sales strategies training on how to provide goods and services to government entities. And we also have joint cooperation with academia for some activities as shown in this slide. So we have collaboration with the University of Rome, the University of Indonesia, and Indonesian State College of Accountancy. Next slide, please. And in this slide, we have the second strategy, which is innovative. In terms of training, we have several methods of training. There is a classroom with full person training. Then blended learning, which is combining online and classroom. And the latest one is a massive open online course. MOOC is a distant learning method on a large scale and can be accessed by anyone and from anywhere as long as they are connected to the internet and have a pre-created training account. MOOC can be accessed through website elearning.lkpp.go.id. This is a web-based basis and provides self-enrollment or self-paced training. So trainees just easily select the topic and then enroll and then attend the training based on the schedule, take the exam and obtain the certificate. All is done through electronic learning management system. In the context of a certification, we have changed the paper-based to computer-based in year 2009. And we currently have online-based certifications in 2021, which are a basic level and competence exam for procurement professionals. By having this kind of method, although we face unprecedented circumstances like the COVID-19 pandemic, it doesn't mean that building procurement capacity for procurement professionals as well as businesses stop just like that, because we understand that the procurement is never sleeps, right? So in the next slide, as this pandemic should not hinder our goals and activities, we conducted a virtual seminar and workshop virtually in series, just like we have today as well. We had a big event like the National Dialogue on Government Procurement, Digital Procurement Festival, and Procurement Week, which attended by almost 80,000 participants in total. And they are coming from national and international experts, higher ranking officials, and representatives for all levels of governments across the country. And for the final slides, finally, we reach to our third strategy, which is adaptive. Aside from collaborative and innovative approach that I have mentioned earlier, being adaptive is also imperative. This is particularly regarding knowledge and practices of procurement that continuously evolve. We at least divide into two parts: adaptive to technology and business process. In terms of technology, we encourage MSEs to join a procurement platform. We call it Bela Pengadaan, where government agencies can directly purchase from MSEs. So this is procure to pay. Likewise, in Indonesia, we already use the electronic system in conducting procurement. Therefore, awareness of information security for both procurement officer and businesses is very important. Moreover, technical support regarding the use of integrated electronic procurement system has also been conducted online through a particular platform. We use LPSE system. And in terms of business process, new method of procurement, for example, e-catalog and online shop, and consolidated procurement are regularly delivered to procurement stakeholders, such as through dissemination, consultation, and training. And sustainable procurement is also included in training modules, and life cycle cost analysis have also been introduced as well. And I think this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. I give it back to moderator, and please just put some news, and also we have several social methods, yeah, and you can use it. Thank you very much. Back to you, Saling.
Thank you very much, Ibu Dwi, for such a great presentation. You gave us quite a bit of insight into the system in Indonesia. In fact, I would call it a systemic view. You gave us the positioning of procurement within the government budget. You highlighted your response to COVID, but then you went into a great degree of detail on your training and how it is structured. I wanted to say that I really appreciated the collaboration that you highlighted in terms of how you design your training. And I think it's a particularly good and strategic approach to have the partnership established with international agencies, but also the partnerships that you've established with academic institutions. So I think, we can see that there should be, an opportunity for access for people in Indonesia and officers in Indonesia to be able to train in procurement in a variety of ways, whether through short courses, whether through certification, whether through full academic courses. So we're able to see various types of training that one is able to access in Indonesia. And I really congratulate you on that, because it shows a tremendous amount of planning has gone into establishing the training. I did want to highlight, before we move into the two final presenters for this afternoon's panel, that we were able to see in the second presentation from Korea an overview of the training institute, the outreach of the system in Korea, and we were able to see this very macro view, and of course quite a bit of detail on what was done with the procurement on masks and syringes. And in your case, we're getting an internal view, not so much on external international outreach, but really on the internal workings of your procurement training. We're also viewing, or we can acknowledge rather, in the presentations that we've received already, that there is a thin line between procurement training in EGP and procurement training in general, right? Very thin line. I think we all start at the same place of training in procurement. And when we consider training in electronic procurement, we really dive into the training of systems and how to use those systems and those platforms. And hopefully we would be entering that realm, having had quite a bit of training in procurement in general. So I want to thank you for your time this afternoon and for sharing such great details with us. We noted a few of your online programs are open to anyone with access to the internet. So I just wanted to repeat that again for our audience, for anyone who is interested in logging onto your website and perhaps looking at the MOOC platform and accessing some of the training. So I wanted to spotlight that. I also wanted to spotlight the comment made by the deputy director from Korea on building the simulation EGP system. I heard that, and I wanted to sort of repeat that for the audience. So you have two invitations here today so far. I know we're short on time, but we will take the time to listen to all our panelists today. I do want to go ahead right now and give the floor over to Joe Fagan, who's an expert on EGP. You've heard his introduction earlier, and I'd like to invite him now to talk to us a little bit of the systems and a private sector view. Joe, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlene, and thank you for the other presenters for giving their overview of their systems and their capacity building that they're doing. I'm just getting into sharing my screen as well. Just to kind of another approach, or not approach, but how to supplement your capacity building initiatives. And that's leveraging the information that you're getting from your systems itself. Because like your e-procurement platforms, just got to get to my page so I can work my presentation here. There we go. Because your systems themselves contain a lot of information. And as you just heard with Indonesia and Korea, they're doing a lot of effort in building capacity and putting training programs to build the knowledge of their officers to kind of make it more professionalism of the procurement people conducting the procurement. And then to go along with that, what really makes people better is the experience, because like as you repeat and go through multiple procurements, you're going to do a better job of those items you're procuring, and then eventually you're going to end up with better outcomes from that. And another component of that is basically learning from other activities that is going on. And that is really, how do you leverage the information in your EGP system that you're collecting? Because it is a project resource, a library of a lot of information that can be shared and used and applied by other officers who may not have gone through similar experiences. And so, as you've seen earlier in the week too, through some of the business analytics that is always promoted with EGP, there's a lot of data, and you can see like the price points, like what different products or services are going through with the different price points. You can analyze a lot of that. That to get to those price points, you're also, how did that organization prepare their bidding document? How did they create their project specs, the evaluation criteria? And if I'm going to be going into a new project, how will I go about that? And so there's a lot of project information that's collected within your system. And then there's a lot of shared experiences that people can gain from the approaches, innovations, strategies. And as they were talking of sustainable procurement or green procurement, how did that formulate into the bidding documents that people were doing? How did they build the evaluation criteria, and what information is required from vendors for doing that? It's the same, Eliza speaking earlier about the concession procurement. How are those structured? And so if you have access to information from previous experiences, that will all help all your officers to conduct their own packages and run their systems better. Even from within an existing EGP system, how did they apply that system and the functions within the system? Because all EGP systems are essentially doing the same thing of exchanging information between the officer and the bidders and collecting, although they'll have different features and functions within the system, and how best to adapt and apply those to get a better procurement. And so what I'd like to talk about, because as been mentioned before, I look at a lot of systems and see a lot of different systems and with different ones. So I didn't want to get into like everybody's e-learning program and certification programs, which are all important. But one of the things I came across earlier this year was some of the initiatives at Bonfire that they were doing to help leverage their information that's collected within the system to the benefit of all their clients. Bonfire is just another SaaS EGP system provider, no different than any EGP system, and the same as what Paul will be following me on N10, where they're doing it for this thing. They run services for over 500 organizations, including small island countries like the Cayman Islands, but many from different practitioners for medical construction. So they have a community of projects. And so one of the things that they've been doing this year is launching initiatives like community projects and Project Insight, and expanding on their knowledge sharing. And what community projects is basically building a library of projects that have been processed through the system from all their organizations. Even though much of this information is public, it's now been consolidated, and they're making it available. So I'm not just looking at projects that I've done within my organizations. I can see projects done by other organizations or countries or groups that are using the same platform. And so they're building this and sharing the information amongst all their clients. And they naturally get permission to share because it is information belonging to an individual client, but they're building up a community of projects. So people can look at what they've done, how they structured their procurement documents, the specification, terms of reference, evaluation, and so forth. And then Project Insights is taking that another level, in the sense is like, what has been the experience with those projects? If I was doing a construction building, a road resurfacing, a new roof, or buying generators or whatever I was doing, what's the experience different organizations have received. So they're taking the statistics to show like you're going to get 20 bids. These are the types of suppliers and the how many bids 20 people look at it, 5 respond, the average size of bids, how did they set up their pricing criteria from 10, 20, 30%, so they can see what's going on. They give you some insights to those packages before you go running your own. You're getting a little more information. And then they're also building out knowledge sharing. And so they're creating successes and failures and getting officers to present their stories on procurement that they've experienced, how they digitize going from paper to electronic, different ways are applying functions within the system, but also innovative strategies for procurement. Nothing to do with this platform, just in general. So they're trying to build knowledge and then engaging with their community to having regular engagement with panel discussions and so forth to help everybody learn from each other. And some of this is like for registered clients, and other information is available to anybody in general as they're trying to build a procurement resource that's available to all. And so like, as I was mentioning, like computer, so I can look at current and past projects. It's not just seeing the results or the outcomes of projects, but actually looking at the project details. What approach did they do? Because I can see how they structured it. I can see how they wrote the terms of specifications, and I can use that as a template when I go to build my own bidding document to help me formulate my own information. So I can drill down, search for various information, see what's coming about, gather the details, look at the structure, download bidding documents or structures and how they've applied that within the system itself. And I can use that information in building my own. And the same thing when I get into project insights, I can analyze from a topic based on different criteria, whether it's construction, facility management, IT, because every sector or item is going to have different information and benchmarks that are going to go along with that. Then I can see similar projects, examine those bidding documents that are available to me, and I just go through the information that's available from the system that they compile and just make it available. So I know what the timeline, what the weighting is, vendors that might come in, typical information that could be coming back, and then go in and grab and browse through their bidding documents that they prepared and how they structured a bid table for collecting pricing information. And all that is going to help me planning my next project. So just learning to leverage the information. And the same thing with knowledge sharing, putting together user stories, webinars, as we just heard from the Indonesia, and it's with expert panel discussions, regular blogs of features and functions, learning how to apply EGP in your processes, and setting it up so it's eliminating paperwork, engaging customers and vendors. And so there's just ongoing engagement that what's going to go on to improve transparency. Learn about new innovation, digital transformations. Much as what we're doing with these ADB conferences is to bring people and share and learn new information about procurement. And it just keeps going on with podcasts, as well as anything else that will come along. And it's like targeted e-learning that's going to help you. As my role in that system, I get targeted learning systems in there. And so really, like, your EGP system is a reference tool. And it's how do you take the information, like we do a lot of emphasis on analytics and really understand outcomes, but it also becomes a reference tool to help other people learn from other people's experiences with the system. So I can help improve overall the knowledge that my officers, so that they can better plan and move forward to the other. So it's learning to leverage and take advantage of the information that you're getting from your system. And there's about my 10 minutes. So thank you very much for your time today. Back to you, Charlene.
Thank you very much, Joe, for this presentation on the bonfire system. I think through this presentation, we got to see what we can do with data. So it's very interesting, and I do want to link your presentation a bit to the first presentation from Jasper Pedersen of ADB. I think the second part of his presentation, Jasper spoke about data analytics, and we can see in the system that you just presented how that comes to life through an actual system. So thank you very much for sharing that presentation with us today. I want to move on right now to our final speaker, Mr. Paul Featherstone, Director for International Sales at Intend. I invite you to take the floor now and to deliver your presentation on Intend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlene. I think the able IT team at ADB are managing my presentation for me. So if you put the first slide on, what I'll try to address during this, and I'll keep it as brief as we can, because I know we're probably running over on time. What I've tried to address is the challenges when looking at capacity planning, when you're looking for an EGP system, and whether that's from a government department starting out as a lead to share experience with other government departments, or whether that's through a whole government body looking at a national system. If you could move on to the first slide for me, that would be great, and then onto the second one. The first point I've got there is why do we need it? We've addressed during the 3 days that we've been running this session why EGP systems are important in terms of risk management, capturing spend, and all that sort of things. One thing I would say with that is speak to colleagues, friends, other people in other departments or other organisations or other nations that have implemented and are in the process of implementing EGP, primarily because they may give you other reasons that give you another driver. Particularly one of the presentations earlier on about women-owned businesses. It may be that the manual systems don't capture that data, and as we said earlier, the ability to capture data from a manual system is very difficult or much more protracted. And there may be by sharing experiences, as Joe's just iterated, from people who are using other GP systems, they may be able to give you other reasons that you can add on to your, right, we need to push in this direction because of, not just the risk factor and managing spend. When is the implementation required? Clearly, if you've made a decision on a government basis, this will be driven by your sort of plans in terms of capturing that spend and being able to then capture the analytics and the data beyond that. It's important to consider what areas will be covered, not only in terms of it may be large infrastructure projects that you're going to capture to start with, but it may be you have to consider what areas will demonstrate quick wins and quick benefits to adoption of EGP. So what areas can you look at from a perspective of, we know there's a requirement here, we know we've got a good team who can manage this, we know we have the capacity within that team in terms of their procurement knowledge and their ability to link to other departments from a legal perspective, from a finance perspective, from a planning perspective. Look at where those sorts of things actually have an impact on what you want to implement. And that sort of then leads on to that sort of fourth point I've put there is, who will manage this EGP system from the start? Who's going to manage the implementation? Who's going to operate it when it's up and running? And then who's going to support both internal stakeholders, external stakeholders? You may have, certainly from an EGP government system, you will have people who are interested in this because it may be a politically driven process to bring spend within a more controlled arena. And if you have that, you will have external stakeholders who don't necessarily interact with the system, but want to get flags and information and reports on a regular basis on the progress of that. How will those be supported? What sort of methodologies are going to put in place to sort of capture that information that keeps those stakeholders both abreast of any benefits that have been realised, but also any challenges that are being faced because of factors that are coming in externally. Next slide, please, if we can move on to that one. So is your organisation ready for EGP? Again, it's been mentioned a few times already over these 3 days. Is the infrastructure available within your organisation or within your department to manage the implementation of an EGP system? Not necessarily from and we've gone through 2 presentations earlier, really sort of in depth about capacity of procurement staff and training procurement staff and making sure that the level of understanding and knowledge is at the level that's appropriate to the procurement exercise that's being taken place. But from an IT infrastructure, and I think on the first day, the analysis of whether it was a bespoke platform or whether it was a SaaS system that was provided, what are the implications of all those, or have they all been considered? So that's really sort of where that sort of first point coming from. Is the drive for an EGP system? Is that coming from a top-led drive because of a political agenda, for want of a better phrase, or is it really from sort of internally for the procurement staff? Because procurement staff, generally speaking, are very, very well versed in trying to allow everybody to see what they're doing. There's a very widely held perspective, certainly from the people that I've dealt with, that they want to sort of make sure people are aware that they are committing to an open and a clarified procedure or a set of procedures, so that suppliers can see that they're not just going to put a response in and it's going to disappear into black hole, and the award of a tender or a project will continue in the same way as it has done. The ability to use an EGP system that provides information to all stakeholders, whether suppliers or on the procurement side, means that you will give the surety of suppliers to engage with them, that if they do submit a response, it will be evaluated fairly and equitably, and if they make the best proposal, they will be, obviously providing they meet all the other parameters, they will be awarded the contract. So that's where you start to engage those people. So it's where that driver is coming from. One of the challenges that we've seen when we've worked with organisations across the world, particularly in the emerging sort of markets and the sort of early the adopters now who are looking to adopt EGP, there's quite a high rotation of staff. And I know we've again gone through a couple of presentations where you talk about the training of staff. Try and consider that the staff that are employed in the early implementation of this will be those key super users who will start to learn and develop the system and build the knowledge. So they need to be people who you think will be in place, certainly during any trial period and implementation, so that you've got that sort of strength of knowledge and understanding, not specifically of an individual platform, but of the implementation process and the ability to share that knowledge. And then clearly the part of the capacity planning are the cost for implementation and the ongoing use of that. Not only just for the actual licensing in relation to something like an Intent product, which is a SaaS, but also the ongoing usage as you bring new staff in and expand usage of the system. Where does the training costs come in? How do you allocate resource that's required to take people away from their normal job and change their process from a manual over to an electronic one? Next slide, please. And particularly from our perspective, one of the challenges we see is engaging with the supply chain. How do we communicate with the providers and the suppliers? What methods have you got for communicating that? We communicate from Intend. We try and communicate with all our suppliers who are registered on our platforms through weekly bulletins that keeps them up to date with perhaps webinars or updates on functionality or changes in how the supplier portal works. All those things need to be borne in mind. They need to be brought into the platform to say what is in it for them. What will change if they start to use an electronic system rather than the manual system? Clearly, from a perspective of managing it, everything's in one place from their supplier portal, particularly on the Intent platform. But they need to be communicated with and sold the benefits of working with an EGP platform rather than the old manual system. because there is an onus on them to change their processes as well as the internal processes that are changing from within the organization. Building those ongoing communication channels, say weekly bulletins, weekly communications. Joe's just iterated there with Bonfire and how they work and engage with the community. That's very much a large part of Intend's MO as well. And again, who will manage and support the providers in terms of an internal resource team to actually answer questions about the electronic tenders that are on a particular system or an electronic project. What team is going to be allocated to do that? Because that then takes some of the procurement skill away from the procurement team if they're answering questions. So do you need a dedicated team to be able to do that? The next slide, please, which I think is probably the final one. Evaluating the benefits. As we said, it's very difficult to evaluate and benchmark against a system that's manual at the moment, because you're wading through piles and piles and piles and reams of documentation and project paperwork and things like that. But to be able to make an evaluation of the benefits of the e-procurement system, what we would recommend is that you get at least some benchmarking data on how you are performing at the moment. Use the time, that the transition of searching for suppliers, looking at what is in the market, getting the information from other providers, getting the information from other nations that have deployed EGP, find out what they are doing, and use that time to try and gather intelligence internally on how you are performing at present. How your data is segregated. Is it by department? Is it by market sector? Is it by provider status? And then who will undertake that analysis? And again, what forms part of the reporting mechanisms to your senior stakeholders or the drivers within the EGP deployment to say what are the benefits of it? How have you made the wins? What are the benefits to the organisation or to the government as a whole? And that's really the sort of summary. Really, I would urge everybody to speak to as many people as you can, in summary, to try and find out what they have, what their experiences are. A lot of it is around cultural change and changing from a manual system to an electronic system. The sort of fear, I think it was mentioned on the first day, probably on the first or second session, the fear of the new. Is often a challenge that has to be addressed. And I think if you have and formulate a department that you think has strong connections and has a good ability to communicate with other stakeholders, that will be a very good place to start in terms of who's going to action your early deployment of an EGP system. More than happy to answer any questions. I know there are a couple that Charlene had pre-circulated, so if I hand back over to Charlene, she'll go back to the questions and answers.
Great. Thank you very much, Paul, for this presentation. I do want to thank you, both yourself and Joe, for talking to us, particularly about the different type of software and the platforms. Thank you for sharing with us this information on the Intend platform. We really appreciate that. And I do want to say that Intend is one of the systems that ADB has made available to some of its member countries to use for carrying out their procurement. So we thank you for that service. You've demonstrated to us how easy it is to use, but also, you know, what you do with respect of engaging your stakeholders and in terms of general readiness for use of an electronic system. So I do thank you and Joe for this last two presentations that spoke to us about you know, making good use of electronic platforms. There have been a few questions that have come already in Q&A that I have answered. That have been very simple regarding access to training, whether the training provided by the Korean system is available to nationals from other countries, and I answered that question. Yes. I think there was also a question on accessing some of the training from the Indonesian system as well. So I did answer that. I'll ask our team to provide information in the Q&A or make it available on the website of this conference information on other training institutes similar to the ITC ILO. Someone is asking about that information, and I think it is perhaps important for us to be able to provide some information on some of the more recognized training institutes that are out there with respect to procurement. I want to have some questions here that I would like to ask to panelists. I want to start with perhaps a question to Joe Fagan and Paul Featherstone. I want to ask you, what advice do you have for countries that are in the early stages of development of their systems, particularly what characteristics of an EGP system should they ensure are incorporated into their software or their modules? Joe or Paul?
I could go first if it's easy. Yeah, a lot of it is, especially on an initial introduction of getting started, is you're going to keep it relatively simple, because overwhelming the practitioners with too much, it's just will make it harder for them to truly adapt, because various systems have a lot of very advanced features for creating how you collect and design your bidding document, build questionnaires, forms, and tables that can facilitate automation of auto evaluation and so forth. But it is a work and time-consuming process. And when you're taking somebody from just publishing a chunk of paper and receiving a piles of paper, there's a lot of learning curve. So the systems themselves are likely incorporating all the functions, but it's also transitioning the people through the process in a simple, guided manner so that they can learn to adapt and apply the system properly as they go forward.
Yeah, I'd reiterate that, Joe, is start with something as simple as an RFI process and process a few RFIs rather than going through try and deploy a full P2P platform, which enables, you know, the whole thing to be managed in one seamless connection. The change requirement and the change management for that would be massive, and then start to already lose some of those people who have got buy-in who have already concerned about moving from paper to electronic. If you can make that process as simple as possible, make the training very quick and snappy, and try and streamline the process as much as you said earlier, EGP systems, broadly speaking, do the same thing. It's about building confidence in the use of those systems and simplifying the processes.
Okay, thank you very much for your response to these questions. I am being told that we are out of time. We do need to move into the next session. I'm very sorry that we will not be able to take any more of the questions live. I do want to thank you all panelists for your presentations today. You know, thank you for your time. I think you've provided to us already quite a bit of information through your very comprehensive presentations. And so we will not be able to go ahead at this point to take any more questions, but we will ensure that the questions are answered manually. And in fact, one of them was just about whether any of you have an RFI template for acquiring an e-procurement system, which is in fact what you and Joe just mentioned. So we will, of course, provide some written responses for that. So without further ado, I want to thank you all. Thank you, panelists, and also to the audience for staying with us. And I really thank you on behalf of ADB and all the organizers of this conference, you know, for the privilege of your time. Thank you for coming out and spending this time with us and giving us such detailed information. We have your presentations and they will be circulated. They will be placed online on the Secretariat platform for this conference. I thank you very much. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
May I hand over to you?
Yes, thank you so much, Charlene, and everyone else. We really appreciate all of your insights and ideas. Do feel free to respond to the questions in the Q&A manually. Do keep your cameras on. Charlene, if you wouldn't mind, we're going to take a quick group picture. So I'm going to remove myself from the screen here so that we can have a picture of all of you. All right, I'm gone. So smile. Picture moment here. There we go. Thank you so much. And like I said, please feel free to go right into that Q&A and start typing away your responses, to the few questions that were left over. Thank you so much for that. So thank you again for everything. It is now my great pleasure to introduce a special guest to share his closing message to all of us. So Dewesh Sharan is the Deputy Director General of the Procurement Portfolio and Financial Management Department for the Asian Development Bank. He has been with the bank for over 21 years, focused on sustainable and inclusive socioeconomic development. As Deputy Director General, he is responsible for managing procurement and financial management policy and oversight, and overall management of over more than $100 billion portfolio of ongoing ADB projects and programs. In addition, he serves as chair of the Data Management Subcommittee supporting digital transformations in ADB. He has over 38 years of experience in catalyzing growth and economic development. In his career, Dewesh has covered a multitude of areas, including infrastructure, health, education, agriculture and natural resources, public management, finance, private sector development, public-private partnerships, climate change, and regional cooperation. Dewesh holds a doctorate's degree in economics from the State University of New York in the United States and a master's degree in physics from Delhi University and Science College in India. Let's now turn our attention to Dewesh's closing message for the conference.
Thanks a lot, Roger. And can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, warm greetings from Manila. First of all, on behalf of ADB, I would like to express our sincere appreciation and thanks for your active participation in the 7th APPEN conference. This is the second APPEN conference that we organized virtually. We are delighted to acknowledge the ongoing support and contributions of the Public Procurement Service of Republic of Korea to the APPEN, our trusted implementation partner in setting up and strengthening the APPEN. We also highly appreciate the excellent contributions made in this conference by the panel members and presenters from the World Bank, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, Inter-American Development Bank, Public Procurement Service of Republic of Korea, and the Open Contracting Partnership. Presentations by government procurement experts from Bhutan, India, and Indonesia, and also Mongolia contributed to valuable takeaways from this conference. The procurement profession is rapidly changing from role-based transactional occupation to a strategic partnership role, where sustainable and resilient supply chain is a norm, where early supplier engagement catalyzes innovative opportunities, and digital solutions provide real-time analytic insights. Innovation and delivery require continuous learning. We hope that you found last 3 days to be of value in this regard. I encourage the participants from the developing member countries to establish short and medium-term goals by taking some of the ideas on how to improve your country's procurement systems to get better value for your money and to address various challenges facing us. We will be sharing digital recording of the conference in the days ahead, and we are always available to discuss your ideas further. In closing, I would like to sincerely thank you all again for your active participation and wish you and your families good health and prosperity. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dewesh, for your inspiring words. We very much appreciate that. Let's now turn our attention to a couple of quick poll questions. These are important for helping us decide how we design future professional learning events and events such as this one. If a training capacity building exercise were to be organized in the future, something that would help us a great deal would be, which of the following topics would be of interest to you? And now this is really your opportunity to tell us what you'd love to learn more about, what you'd love to hear more about from us. So please go ahead and participate in the poll now. This one is incredibly important to how we design future events. So I see here responses are coming in very quickly. I love it. Keep it coming. We see various topics that are rising to the top. I see regulatory frameworks to promote green public procurement is one that is holding steady near the top. Circular public procurement as well. Please keep your responses coming. Great, there we go. I see here still holding steady in the top spot is regulatory frameworks to promote green public procurement. All right, continue, keep your responses coming. Thank you very much. I see here also life cycle costing tools and methodologies. Very good. The link between GPP and the Sustainable Development Goals. Great. All right, and just a few more responses and we will wrap up this poll. So keep them coming. There we go. Awesome, thank you so much for that. Regulatory frameworks to promote green public procurement continues to remain on top. So I think we're gonna close this one out. All right, let's go to the next and last question, the last poll question that is. And so you should see that. Okay. And now you should see this question up on your screen. What additional topics would you like to see discussed in next year's annual conference? Choose your top 3 topics. All right, I see here e-procurement system development trends is taking an early lead. Very good. Keep them coming. You're basically deciding next year's agenda for us. So this is your opportunity to tell us what you want the agenda to look like. Shape it for us, help us design it next year. This is great. I love the participation here, coming in very fast. E-procurement system development trends is still leading the way. Use of new and applied technology, procurement policy and legislation, very good. This is looking very good here. Developments in sustainable procurement, including indicators. All right, we're going to be wrapping this up soon. Keep your responses coming. We're almost there. We're almost there. There you go. Thank you so much. Continue responding. This is great. This is incredibly insightful. This is going to help us as we design next year's program. I think we're going to wrap up the poll now. So let's go ahead and bring that to a close. All right, looks like we have closed out the poll. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I want to take this opportunity, oops, I'm getting little pop-ups on my screen here. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our distinguished speakers for being with us over the last 3 days at all hours of the day, because you've tuned in from about 20 different time zones, sharing your ideas and insights with us. For my friends who are based on the East Coast of the United States with me right now, we've been online with you all through the middle of the night. So we definitely appreciate your time. Thank you so much for that. Thank you to our keynote speakers. All the way kicking us off, Bruce Gosper, Kim Chung-woo, and Dewesh for closing us off here and wrapping us up. We definitely appreciate the strong and opening closing remarks for this special event. Thank you to our moderators for driving an insightful conversation throughout our sessions. Thank you to Sarah Coggreve, Galia Ismakova, Jenny Chu, Dr. Ram Somasundaram, Joe Fagan, Keiko Novatska, Charlene Shillingford McKimmon for wrapping us up here so well in our final session. Also, I want to thank Pam Enriquez and the entire EON team. This is the team behind the digital production. So we don't do this on our own. I get to just be here and speak to all of you, but someone's controlling all of the tech behind the scenes. And so we thank them for all of their efforts. And a very special thank you to the ADB event organizers who made this event possible. They have been working for months to prepare all of this, working with all of you, the panelists and the moderators, to pull together this content to present to all of our participants, to all of you. So we want to thank our ADB event organizers. This would not have happened without everything that you've done. You've made sure that the event executed perfectly. Thank you to Apple Yusan, Naideb Bombay, Sarah Park, Oma Gautno, and Galia, of course, for all of the work you did to bring this event together. We appreciate everything. And thank you to all of you, our guests. You've given so much of your valuable time to be here with us, and it is our sincere hope that we've been able to deliver value to you in the form of new ideas, insightful advice, relevant resources. Please connect with each other, share contact information if you'd like in the chat, but do find each other after this event, because a lot of ideas were shared here, and now it's important to, and taking the word and the advice of Dewesh in his closing remarks, to set those short and long-term goals, find those actions that we can take from this event, and do take action right away. Commit to following up on one of the key ideas that you heard, or connecting with someone from the event. Keep it simple. Book a meeting, make a call, set an appointment, whatever it takes in order to begin the process to make more progress. So make sure you keep the learning going, because that's what makes this event more impactful and significantly impacts the return on your investment. Do stay tuned for a follow-up email from the organizing team when videos and slides will be made available to all of you. And personally, I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to be able to serve you over the last few days as Master of Ceremonies. It's been my pleasure to come back to serve this event again, and hopefully we'll be able to cross paths again in the future, perhaps connect on LinkedIn. Do take a moment. We are going to flash a QR code. I ask that you please consider taking a few minutes to complete a survey that is going to help us with other parts of the event. We'd love your feedback. We'd love your thoughts, ideas, and comments here. This is, again, how we have the opportunity to, or create the opportunity to improve this event. So we look forward to your participation. Use that QR code. Simply take your phone, turn on the camera, scan the QR code, and you will be able to access the survey online, and just take a few minutes for us. It's one little ask we have of you. One more ask, the last ask, I promise, for you to take some time to fill out that survey. It's going to pay off for all of us and really help us out with next year's planning. So thank you again. We wish you all the best on your digital transformations. And actually, I'm going to ask if the organizing team and Pam and others from EON can stay online so we can take a group picture with the organizers all on screen. So as we gather everybody and have everybody turn on their cameras, perhaps we can put the QR code back on. We want to make sure. Oh, I see here there is a link directly to the survey in the chat. So go into the chat right now, and you can also click there to access the survey directly through that link. Thank you again, everyone. We appreciate all of your time. Good evening, good rest of the day, wherever in the world you might be. All right, let's get our organizers on the screen. Let's pin everybody.
Hi, Joe.
All right. Do we have everyone here that we can pin for that final group picture? And who do we want in this? Kalia, Pam, who are we looking for here? Also, do we want our moderators as well?
Yep.
All right, so moderators, speakers, organizers, if you are online, turn on your camera right now. If you can hear my voice, go ahead and turn on your camera. We're going to, I think, pin everyone who has a camera on. So let's start doing that now because, gosh, I'm the only spotlight at the moment.
Naide, Chris, are you there? Charlene, Joe, Paul, I haven't.
Hello, Galia.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Yes.
Kalia.
Hi, Galia.
All I know is my next copy is going to be 2/3 Bailey's.
Right. Okay, you deserved it.
Mine too. Mine too.
It's
Charlene's
after
already
5
is.
p.m. somewhere in the world. Oh, actually, I know where. In the Philippines.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
here. Not here.
To the naked eye,
11.
this looks like it's water.
The thing in the Philippines, you can buy liquor at any time.
Oh, there you go.
It's
There are no-
11:25 now. Here.
I see they're going to let tourists back in next soon.
All right. So
Okay.
it looks like they're gonna snap the picture now. So if let's see, does everybody have their cameras on that is available? I think so. All right, let's smile. That's what I'm being told. And hold a smile. Okay. I think we got it. Did we get it? Done. We got it. Awesome.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone.
Great job,
Thank you,
everyone.
Galia.
Galia,
Thank
thanks,
you.
everyone.
Take care,
Hopefully we
everyone.
see you all live next year.
Yes, please, in person.
Live, please, live.
Live, not virtual live, real life.
Yeah, in person live. In person live.
So we're in the same time zone.
That'll be nice. That'll be really nice.
It will.
It was great working with all of you. Okay.
Thanks
Goodbye.
again, everyone.
All
Have a
right,
good
thank
night.
you,
Cheerio.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Galia and team, do you want to jump on MS Teams or?
Yeah, I
You
will.
guys? All right, I'll be there in a moment. See you in a few.